You have seen the video, families and children in cages at detention facilities near the southern border. Earlier this year, thousands of children were separated from their parents as part of the government's zero-tolerance immigration policy. And it caused an uproar on both sides of the aisle, with many demanding those children be reunited with their loved ones. And just this week, a federal judge blocked a rule that would have let the government keep migrant children in those detention facilities with their parents. The reason why: the families would have to be held through the length of their immigration proceedings, which could take a long time. And that breaks a 1997 agreement that requires the government to release the children to relatives as fast as possible. The Trump administration claims this ruling prevents them from keeping families together. And just a few weeks ago, a group from St. Louis visited the Arizona-Mexico border. It was sponsored by the JCPA, that's the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. Rory Picker-Neese was part of the group. Rory is the executive director of the St. Louis Jewish Community Relations Council. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I mentioned before the break, it is such a polarizing and political topic. But it's something that we all need to talk about and understand. So I guess I should ask, so why did your group decide to go to the border?
For exactly the reasons that you said. We felt that there was so much conversation happening and so much in the media around this crisis at the southern border. And we felt that we needed both to have leadership demonstrate that this is a crucial issue, that we need to be paying attention, and we needed our leaders to go and see firsthand what was actually happening, not just filtered through other people, but to see for ourselves what we're really dealing with as we talk about this crisis.
Okay, so these are photos of you and the group. 3 from St. Louis went,
yes,
right?
Yes, we were a 23-person delegation. 3 of us were from St. Louis, from about 12 states across the country, and really just felt the need to be present, not only in terms of witness, but one of the pictures showed us with suitcases. One of the shelters that we visited on the Mexico side asked for art supplies and games for kids as they're waiting for these proceedings to begin. And we put out the call to our network and ended up with 5 suitcases full of supplies that people asked us to deliver.
That is great. You did not go to a detention facility. You visited a number of shelters, right?
Yes, we visited.
What is the difference there then?
So the shelters that we visited one on the Mexican side and one on the Arizona side. The one on the Mexican side was for families who some were from Mexico, others were from other countries, mostly Central American, although some they mentioned were from Europe and even Africa, who had made their way to the Mexican border to apply for asylum at the border. But there's a process right now called metering, where people who arrive at border protection are told to take a number because there's such an overwhelming number of people waiting. And so these individuals were waiting at the shelter for their turn to even say that they want to apply for asylum. And that wait could be anywhere from 1 to 2 months. Then we visited people who were on the Arizona side of the border. Those were individuals who had gone through the metering process, who had presented themselves for asylum, who then were evaluated as having a credible fear and were then going to begin immigration proceedings. And for a variety of factors, whether because there were not enough beds in other detention facilities, because they were deemed to be able to be released on their own recognizance, they were brought to this shelter, which then was helping them to get some clothing, get some food, and then prepare their bus tickets to go to the city where they would then complete their immigration proceedings.
Listening to what you're just saying, it sounds like so much going on that it's almost like no end in sight. So on this fact-finding mission, what is your takeaway?
Most of my takeaway right now is just the heartbreak of it all. But to really try to understand more deeply that as we talk about this complicated system, everything that we've just talked about is all within the legal system of applying for asylum in the United States. We also did visit a courthouse where we saw Operation Streamlining, individuals who were caught crossing the border illegally, who were arrested, put into criminal court, and then within really 1 to 9 days were being processed for this criminal charge of entering the country illegally, and then sent to deportation hearings. The people that we saw who are trying to apply for asylum are trying to enter this country legally. This is a legal process to present oneself, say that they live in fear, and then go through this court, essentially a court case, for the judge to determine if they qualify for asylum and then can be settled in the United States. So as we talk about what's happening at some of these detention facilities, as we talk about the crisis at the border, these are not people that are trying to enter illegally. This is a legal process that has just become overwhelmed because of climate change, violence, government instability in these other countries.
Okay, we only have literally like 20 seconds left. So what, moving forward, what does your group want to do, and what do you hope will happen?
Well, first we're starting with education. We have a number of programs to help people learn more about what's happening and learn ways to get involved, trying to support the people who are here and people who are in that process of getting resettled. I hope that we could have a way to have this conversation better, to really understand the needs and to recognize that we have something to contribute in either solving these crises within these countries or in helping people build a better life in this country.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your trip, and you know, there's a lot ahead that needs to be done. Most
Absolutely.
definitely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rory, and we will be right back.